Welcome to your week 5 video lesson. This is your lesson for Tuesday, April 21st. So let's get started. You'll notice that on Schoology, a couple of things have been rearranged just to make it easier for you guys to track dates and deadlines. So the first thing here, of course, join Remind. It's the quickest way to get in touch with me if you have questions. Our distance learning schedule has been posted. I'm going to go over it with you briefly again. The links to office hours are all here on Schoology, Monday, Thursday, and Wednesday. Each of them have set appointment times, so don't miss that time slot if you have questions about the lessons. And then by week, this is by week that we have been in school closures, guys. So week 1 and 2 work was assigned before you left campus. Then we have week 3, 4, and 5. And the dates are also here just in case you forget. What was week 5 again? Go ahead and keep track of your work in each of these folders, and if you're falling behind, just do your best to catch up right now. I know it's tough for some people working from home. Now that you've seen what Schoology is looking like right now, I'm going to go over our lesson for today. We are talking about the Crusades today. This is something you might have learned about back with Miss Amador. We're going to go over it again today. Notice that this is part 1 of 2. Your lesson today has 2 parts. The second part I'm going to go over because it's not going to be another video, it's going to be on Zoom. But for now, part 1. Your lesson objective for today. After watching this video, you're going to be able to answer check for understanding questions, and you're going to be able to share your responses with me and your classmates on Zoom. First step, video and the slides. By the end of the week, the slides will be posted, but for now, you have the video. So your job is to watch and listen. Second part, review. Once you've watched this video completely, you're going to write down some answers to check for understanding questions. You'll know that they are check for understanding questions because I'm going to have them labeled as check for understanding questions. So please make sure you're writing down those answers as we go along in this video. Lastly, you're going to be able to share those answers in our Zoom conference. Now, our second class this week is going to be on Zoom, so you get to see your classmates. I'll say hi. Hopefully everybody is able to show up and find the links, and everybody's checking Schoology so they know what's happening. But expect a Zoom conference on Thursday, 4/23. And that Zoom conference will take place during our assigned class period. So look at your distance learning schedule to find out when that is. So everything you need each week should be in this folder. If you have questions about that, for a quick answer, use Remind. If you need more time with me and you really need me to explain something in depth, definitely attend office hours. Here's our distance learning schedule. So let me show you what this schedule looks like this week. Tuesday, you're working individually. You're watching the video. You're writing down answers to check for understanding questions, and you're answering a class discussion on Schoology. All of this is under week 5. For Thursday, you're attending a Zoom meeting and you're going to do an activity with me while we're in that Zoom session. So you need to come prepared with answers to check for understanding questions, and I expect your full participation while you're on Zoom. You're not just going to sit there and stare at me or your classmates. You got stuff to do, okay? Tuesday, work individually, watch your videos, catch up if you have work to turn in. Thursday, show up ready with your answers to those questions because I will call on you. Moving on. Today's essential question: can something be both a success and a failure? Think about that and answer that discussion question on Schoology. Today we're going to be talking about an event in history that was considered both a success and a failure. But you be the judge. While you're watching this video, be on the lookout for answers to these questions. Check for understanding questions. As you watch, write down the answers, okay? First question: why did Muslims and Christians consider Jerusalem to be a holy land? What was the Pope's goal in the Crusades? And what caused the Crusades? How did the Pope convince Christians to fight in the Crusades? And your opinion, were the Crusades considered both a success or a failure? Explain your answer. You tell me. And explain your answer. Always, always, always explain. Okay, so let's give you some background information here. Before the Western Roman Empire fell, Emperor Diocletian, remember we talked about him a while back, decided that it would be best, because we have such a large Roman Empire, we need to split this empire in two. Now, that was not a good idea in the long run, because one side flourished and became the Byzantine Empire, and the other side declined altogether. And that's when we have the chaos of invasion from Vikings and all of these things going on the western side of the Roman Empire. So the Eastern Roman Empire was doing great. Western, not so good. But the church was taking care of what was left over in Western Europe after the fall of Rome. Remember, after Rome fell, there were no more things like governments to provide order, to give out food to the poor. These things that governments usually do, like, I don't know, help provide education, for instance. All of those things started to be taken care of by the Roman Catholic Church. The church gained a lot of power and respect by providing for the needs of the people during a very, very, very scary time. Meanwhile, the Byzantine Empire, which was the Eastern Roman Empire, was still going strong. Okay, so let's go full screen and take a look at this map. We have the Byzantine Empire here in purple. The capital, Constantinople, named after the old Roman Empire Constantine. Now keep in mind, this is a Christian-dominated area. But take a look at all this green. Now the green represents an empire that practiced Islam. You guys studied about Islam, Muhammad, and how quickly Islam was spread during the Middle Ages. Now take a look. Their territory is pressing very closely up against one another. Christian-dominated, Islamic. But you can see that there might be some tension with their territories being so close to one another and practicing two different religions. So the Crusades were a long series of wars between Christians and Muslims. They fought over the control of the Holy Land, Jerusalem, which was very important to three different religions: Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Now, Jewish people believed that they had a claim to Jerusalem because this is the land that God promised them after they were brought out of slavery. Christians, you see the cross here, believed that this is where Jesus performed his miracles and lived his life. This is the area where Jesus was resurrected according to their religion, meaning that he had risen from the dead. This is where the first churches were started according to Christianity. This area meant a lot to Christians. Now, Muslims claim Jerusalem is their city. This is where the founder of Islam, Muhammad, was believed to first have an encounter with God. This area is considered a very sacred land for Muslims. So we can see we have three different religions all feeling like they have a right to the same area. So we see the beginnings of an issue here. It was common for many Jews, Christians, and Muslims to visit Jerusalem, this holy land. We notice how close these territories are. The ruler of the Byzantine Empire was concerned about the growing power and spread of Islam. So they wanted to recapture this holy land in Jerusalem, east of the Mediterranean Sea. So what do? Naturally, they want to start a war. The Crusades were a fight for control over this region. At this time, I want you to go ahead and go back in this video, pause it if you need to, start writing down the answers to a couple of questions. Pause this video, give yourself a break, and go ahead and write those answers down before you go any further. I'm going to continue now. So the main goal of the Crusades, to capture, should I say recapture, the Holy Land from Muslims. This land was under Muslim control. Christians wanted it for themselves. And not to mention, the growing power of the spread of Islam and the Islamic empires were one more reason to go to war. But the main goal is to recapture this holy land. Okay, so in summary, the causes of the Crusades: Muslim Turks captured the city of Jerusalem from the Byzantine Empire. It was under Christian control, but then Christians lost that territory. Muslims stopped letting Christians visit the Holy Land, and Christian pilgrims were attacked. Because of the growing power of Islamic empires, the Byzantine Empire feared that an attack would be coming. So they wanted to prevent that, weaken the Arab empires, and take back the Holy Land for themselves. The Pope, Pope Urban II, calls people to fight for this holy land. So remember, the Catholic Church still has a lot of power here. The Pope, a religious leader, is calling people to fight and put their lives on the line for these crusades. Pope Urban II claimed that anyone who went to fight for these crusades would have their sins forgiven and go to heaven. If you've done week 1 and 2 work, you've probably read a primary source quote from Pope Urban II. You're going to be in good hands. You're going to heaven. All your sins are going to be forgiven. This is what the Pope is claiming. So they get a lot of people to go ahead and go to the Crusades. Now, what people are going to the Crusades? Feudal lords, knights, peasants. Each person had a different reason to answer this call to go to war. Feudal lords wanted to gain more power, prestige. When we're saying feudal lords, we're usually talking about the noble class. Same thing for the knights. They wanted power, they wanted money, and some people just wanted some adventure. Now, peasants. Remember, peasants did not have a whole lot of power, but one way to gain power was to fight in a war. So you might see a lot of peasants joining the Crusades. All of them are answering the Pope's call to action. So it's really interesting to see how powerful the Pope is to get you to lend your life and go to war. That's how powerful the Pope is. Okay, so now there were multiple crusades, and I'm not going to tell you every detail about all of them. I'm just going to give you the highlights for the first 3 and tell you what the big idea is so you can finish your questions. The first crusade was about the only crusade that has a positive result for the Christians. They were successful in recapturing Jerusalem temporarily. Did not last long. Christians went back home. The Turks eventually took back the territory of Jerusalem, and the king of France decided, hey, we need to go recapture this land again. The Second Crusade begins. Now, ultimately, the Second Crusade is unsuccessful. They lost the element of surprise, and Jerusalem was very well defended. The Third Crusade, also unsuccessful for the Christians. Some people say it ended in a truce, but truth be told, by the end of the crusade, Muslims were still controlling the territory of Jerusalem. So Christians did not succeed. Even though they technically lost, there was somewhat of an agreement because Christians were allowed to visit the Holy Land after the crusade. That arrangement came a bit of a truce. I'll let you visit, but this land is under Muslim control. There were many more crusades throughout the 1200s, but the bottom line is they were not successful. A quick review of where we've been and where we're going. What's the big idea? So what? What happened with the Crusades? They were unsuccessful. What's the big deal? Well, listen up. Remember, Dark Ages. There was little trade. There was no education. Roman Empire provided all that. Roman Empire's gone. Okay? So the church dominated politically. The church had the power. Don't forget that. Early Middle Ages, time of chaos, church rises to power and fills the needs of the people. Pope Urban II, a religious leader, is powerful enough to call people to war, to risk their lives, to fight for this holy land in Jerusalem. Now, the long-term result, the Muslims won control of the Holy Land. However, the Crusades ended up having a different impact that people really didn't predict. It increased trade. So when people got back from fighting in these crusades in a faraway land, they start to realize, wow, you Europeans have some pretty cool stuff. And then Arabs start looking at the Europeans' belongings like, hey, that doesn't look half bad. You got any more of that? People start desiring these goods from these faraway places, and trade begins to increase. When that happens, towns start to come back in Europe. It goes from these decentralized feudal manors that were self-sufficient to cities and towns again. There's a lot of reasons for that, but an increase in trade is one of them. So the big idea? These are the results of the Crusades. This is a memory device. It's not the best memory device in the world, but it helps. If Turks traveled. If Turks traveled. The if part stands for improvements and feudalism. So the Crusades led to better ships, better maps. There was a lot of travel. And then F, feudalism, declines because lords die fighting this war, or they spend too much money on their military. The T stands for Turks, the Muslim Turks. They still rule the Holy Land. The objective of going out and conquering this great Holy Land for your religion didn't work out so well for the Christians. Travel. Europeans want to travel more. They're more interested in exploration. They're like, wow, so those Crusades were interesting. What else is out there in the world? They start getting very curious. And then the most important result, trade, 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 trade. But now they've been exposed to nice things and they want more nice things. Now be prepared to answer these questions for Thursday's Zoom meeting. Were the Crusades considered a success or a failure? You tell me, knowing all you know about what the goal of the Crusades was and what actually happened. Now with that, you are ready to go ahead and answer week five's discussion question on Schoology. And last but not least, make sure you're writing down those answers to your Check for Understanding questions so you're prepared for Thursday's Zoom conference. Looking forward to seeing all of you and talking to you. Miss your faces. Please come to me if you need help, office hours, or if you just want to say hi real quick, that's totally fine too. Miss you guys. Stay safe at home. Bye.